Morning, and I hate to disturb your breakfast. I just wanted to welcome you to our event in honor of our dear friend, Minister Ahmed Issa. I would like to share with you today's agenda. Right after breakfast, His Excellency is going to give a PowerPoint presentation, and then we're going to have a conversation with the Minister, moderated by our Chairman, Khaled Nosseir. I would also like to share with you some of BEBA's forthcoming events. On the 22nd of November, we're organizing a mega project in Egypt event. And then in February, we're having our business mission to the UK. It was supposed to be in November, but we postponed it to February. So enjoy your breakfast, and we'll talk to you in a few minutes. Enjoy it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to BEBA's event. It's been a while since we last met. Hope you all had a good summer vacation, despite all the recent unwelcoming events that the whole area is going through. Anyways, of course, we'd like to welcome our distinguished guest today, whom on behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome His Excellency Minister Ahmed Issa, Minister of Tourism and Antiquities. The topic of our breakfast with him today is invest in tourism and the opportunities and incentives. I'd like to welcome our special guests, His Excellency Gareth Bayley, British Ambassador to Egypt, His Excellency Dominic Goh, Singaporean Ambassador to Egypt, Mr.Onoufrios Oikonomidis, Deputy of Mission for Cyprus, Mr. Asheesh Gupta, Indian Deputy Chief of Mission to Egypt, and Mr. Hussam Heba, President of GAFI, Dr. Ahmed Ghanim, Director of the National Museum of Civilization, and would like to welcome the new British Business and Trade Director in Egypt, Charlie Garnett. Welcome, Charlie. And with us today is also Maestro Nadeer Abassi, our famous artist, I would like to welcome with us. And Dr. Maged Farag is here as well. Welcome, Dr. Maged. Before we go on with our discussion with His Excellency, I'd like to recognize our events partners for their continuous support: Banque d'Icaire, CIB Egypt, GlaxoSmithKline GSK, New Era for Education, Suez Canal Bank, Tatweer Misr, and Vodafone Egypt. And special thanks to our strategic media partner, Excellent DNN. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming His Excellency Minister Ahmed Issa.
Sabah al-Khair, good morning. Your Excellencies, what a great pleasure to be here. Actually, I see so many friends. It's always heartening, actually, since I took this position, to be able to address the private sector. I still feel like home, and I take tremendous pride in the 30-year tenure that I spent with the private sector. I have a strong belief, actually, that industries that are led by the private sector are more efficient, are more able to produce productive jobs for the economy, and at the same time are more able to generate taxes for the government. صح. So it is a great pleasure to be with you here today. Again, friends, I thought about how to start the presentation. Should I start by addressing the current situation, or do you want me to go directly into the the long-term plan or strategy. Let's help me here. Help me out here. Let me see a show of friends. Who wants to see how we're addressing the current situation first? Okay, so I guess that. Okay, so let's go with that. Naturally, of course, over the past 2 weeks, challenges have emerged, risks have increased for the industry. We're seeing much more number of questions from our partners in Europe and in the source markets. And here's what the ministry and the federation have done over the past 2 weeks. Number one, we have gathered the board of directors of the Tourism Promotion Authority and of the fund for the development of, for the fund that which generates the financing for the tourism promotion activities in Egypt. And we have made the following decisions, and we have communicated them well. The number one decision is that we have decided to extend the aviation incentives program. That program was supposed to end this month, by the end of this month, and we have managed the expectations of our partners over the past couple of months that we are going to reduce the incentives per flight. We have told them last week that we have decided to extend the program at the current incentives per flight, which was very lucrative for the industry. And in addition, we have added a package for Sharm el-Sheikh for 4 months, starting November 1st, where flights landing in Sharm el-Sheikh are going to be able to qualify for incentives, even if they are only 60% full. And we have added another $500 actually to each flight incented in Sharm el-Sheikh. We have also talked to our partners. The tourism promotion or the tourism industry in Egypt today depends on more than 300 institutional companies across the source markets. We have communicated with each one of them in Germany, in the UK, in France, Spain, the US, Poland, and other countries. And we have told them, please go ahead and increase spending on the Egyptian product. Since I took over, actually, I have redirected the budgeting and marketing strategies for the tourism industry from trying to incent demand to a strategy which focuses on fixing the supply side, making sure that there are good products put in the hands of the customers through the value chain across the source markets. And I'll explain during my presentation what do I mean by these seemingly big words, but they're absolutely nothing. So what we're going to do actually is that we've told them you have, over the coming few weeks, 100% increase in the amount of money that you can spend on promoting the Egyptian product in your source markets, and we're going to pay up to 50% of the budget. And we have added 100% places, more places to what we call the familiarization trips. So the retailers and the salespeople of those companies that are members of the value chain, which sell the Egyptian product, will be able to send more retailers and salespeople to the Egyptian product. We have produced videos like this one.
And we're from America.
I'm a US citizen from Mexico. So my experience was fantastic because it was my dream since I was little. And we made so much temple, so much tomb.
Some places that we've been since we've been in Egypt have been to Valley of the Kings, we've been to Abu Simbel, we've been to Aswan, we've been to Cairo.
Very amazing. The hospitality here is very nice, Everyone has been very friendly.
And one of my particular favorites was the museums. The new museum is excellent to look at.
And it's been a very lovely time, and people have been very welcoming and very informative.
So we have produced, I think, about 6 or 7 testimonials like this one during the weekend, during the last weekend, and they are been delivered to the value chain, to our partners across the value chain. And at the same time, we're using our strong relationships with Meta and Google, and through a new agreement that we have just enacted over the past 2 weeks called Search Engine Optimization, where actually in the source markets, in 12 source markets, people who are now searching for Egypt and travel to Egypt or travel in general are going to be able to be directed to those videos. So these are things that, actions that we have taken. We have put all of this into 300 letters that we have sent to our partners to explain those activities. And at the same time, my colleagues and I have split the 300 plus companies that constitute this value chain among us. We're talking directly to each one of them, to the executives of each one of them. Those companies, by the way, bring more than 90% of tourism into Egypt. So we have already reached out to the companies that are most influential in bringing more than 90% of the tourism into Egypt. Now, so these are the things that we have done. I know that there are some members of the press in the room. ممكن أقول شوية أرقام بس ما you don't quote. ازيك يا دعاء؟ ها؟ ولا بلاش؟ طب خلاص بلاش. طيب احنا يعني over the past weeks, you know guys that I manage my numbers by the week. Each Saturday morning we generate the numbers up to last week. I've brought in the same techniques from my retail banking days at CIB, and I'm very happy to report that the numbers seem so far okay. We're going to continue to be okay. Of course, we're seeing some cancellations from some source markets. The source markets that we're seeing cancellations in are the markets that were here for the regional products, because so because tourism industry is almost shut down now in Israel. So all the customers that were coming for regional products who would do Egypt, Israel, and Jordan, for example, we're seeing cancellations in this specific product, but otherwise things continue to be okay. And please بلاش المشكلة. طيب احنا I think we're also in good shape over the coming 2 months as I travel to the main source markets, and at the same time try to build momentum in alternative markets like China, India, South Korea, and maybe Australia as well. So these are overall the strategies that we have enacted. These were strategies that were put in place as part of our crisis management planning months ago, and I think they are working still very well, actually. You've probably noticed as well that we have opened the Greco-Roman Museum in Alexandria. Anybody has been instead of you, ma'am? Anybody? Please go. Well, how did you find that? مش كده? Well, it's an impressive museum, يا جماعة. Please go stay the next weekend in Alexandria. Walk the streets of Alexandria and visit that museum. It's an amazing place. It's an amazing place, الحقيقة. So this is what we've done so far about the current events. Should I go into what I was supposed to talk to you about? Let's do that. So here's the goal. An aggressive growth target of 25 to 30% for the foreseeable future. an industry that is led by the private sector, and I'll explain what do I mean by that. An industry that is governed by an effective regulatory framework, and I'll also explain in this presentation what do I mean by that. Now, by the way, 30 million is a number that you have to pick a certain point in the future to aim for, right? So we've chosen 2028, and the number that we are aiming for is 30 million for that point in time. But whenever I always try to ask this question to just make sure that although we are ambitious, I just want to make sure that we continue to be sane. Who in the room doesn't believe that Egypt doesn't, or who believes that Egypt deserves to be the #1 country in the world in tourism? Yeah, me too. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. So, this is, so let's can I spend a moment first and actually try to explain what that means, so we can all make sure at least that we agree on the vision, on the end game. The #1 country in the tourism today is about 80-90 million tourists. The #1 country in the world today is about 1 to 1.2 million rooms. The #1 country in the world today is led by the private sector, the services provided by the private sector, and the private sector is very strongly organized in chambers and in federations, and those federations and chambers constitute the civil society organizations which represent the private sector vis-a-vis the government. Those civil society organizations provide strong advisory and strong policy advocacy vis-a-vis the government. They actually suggest the laws. They actually be able to self-govern at some time. Actually, most #1 countries in the world don't or doesn't. Most don't. Okay, most don't have a Ministry of Tourism. Italy only has, I'm flying out to Italy later this afternoon, actually, and they only built a Ministry of Tourism to deal with over-tourism, actually, 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I'm meeting Her Excellency later today or tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. So what's the role of a Ministry of Tourism in this end game, in the vision, in maybe when we get to serve 80 million? Every private sector industry deserves a good qualified regulator that puts forward policies which promotes the industry, which ensures that the tourist receives what they were promised. And in a framework of standards that achieves minimum qualities of safety, security, and hygiene. That's the #1 role of regulators in tourism industries in the #1 countries in the world. And because I actually believe that Egypt is just like any other country in the world, I believe that if we want to be #1 country in the world, this is the structure that we should also aim at. So, as a result of that, the #1 function of the Ministry of Tourism today is to ensure that it builds itself, it develops itself as a proper regulator for the tourism industry, to ensure that there is certain qualities or standards of safety, security, and hygiene, and that every regulated company, every licensed company is able and capable of delivering to the tourist what they have promised. So let's start with a few things. Rooms. These are the number of rooms in Egypt since 2000. We have grown from 2,000, from 100,000 rooms to 200,000 rooms over a 22-year period. The #1 country in the world needs 1 million to 1.2 million rooms. By the way, the average number of nights per tourist in Egypt today is about 9 nights. They fly in mostly, 90% who arrive in Egypt fly into Hurghada or Cairo or Sharm el-Sheikh or Marsa Alam. They need rooms. So for us to get to 30 million in 2028, we need to have 400,000 rooms. And by the way, every 15,000 rooms bring about 1 to 2 billion, actually million, I'm sorry, 1 to 2 billion US dollars of foreign currency receipts. Again, 1 to 1.5 billion Egyptian pounds of value-added taxes, and they create about 30,000 direct and indirect jobs. Sorry for the typo there. So it is in the best interest of everyone for the country to continue to build hotel rooms, for us to reach the objective. And without those things, without this infrastructure, talking about more tourists is just a theoretical exercise. Now, I'll put forward to you what the ministry is actually trying to do so the private sector can build those rooms, the private sector can organize those products and tries to sell them through the value chain across the source markets. The #1 thing that we're trying to do is actually that we're working on making sure that there is enough aviation seats, enough air capacity that flies into Egypt. Some of the private sector members, Basil was here actually. I remember actually him coming to my office about 10 times during the first few months. Just please focus on aviation. Just please focus on aviation. Whenever I actually used to see Basil at the beginning of my tenure, actually I knew that the next word that is going to come out of his mouth is aviation. Thank you. You've really helped me a lot. And as a result, the #1 focus that we have done, to tell you the truth, here's how I verified what you told me, Basil. Actually called a couple of tour agents that on the retailers that I know on the streets of Barcelona. I told them, guys, I've never passed by your window and I found an Egyptian product in your windows. While I've seen the Egyptian product in your windows, sorry, the Turkish product, the Moroccan product in your window, for the past 5-6 years, I've passed in front of your shop and the Egyptian product was just not there. Why aren't you selling it? Why aren't you telling your customers about it? They said, we don't have a wholesaler who manufactures the product and puts it in front of us so we can sell it. So I called a couple of the wholesalers, the usual suspects. For those of you who have watched Casablanca, I've called up the usual suspects. Guys, why aren't you manufacturing the Egyptian product and putting it in the hands of the retailer across the streets of Europe? Well, simply because there isn't enough aviations, and our CFOs chief financial officers think that it's too risky for us to relaunch the Egyptian product. You've been out of the market for some time, and we just can't find enough reason to convince our chief financial officers to allocate budgets for us to market the product. So I went back. Basil was still pounding on my door. And we have decided to promise the industry 2 or 3 things. #1, we have made sure that I met with all the major airlines. I have promised you in my previous meetings and in other private sector meetings that we're going to get the number of aviation seats up by 30% to be able to achieve our target. And we did. The number of seats this year in Egypt is up by 35% because of the incentives program. Aviation companies, air carriers, lost money when they landed in Egypt because the load factors were not high enough and the cost to land in Egyptian airports was just too high. So we incented them to land in Cairo, and we have created a program where they can get tiered incentives per flight based on the airport that they land in, based on the size of the company, based on the growth rate that they achieve in the Egyptian product. So for those of you who are actually in the industry, when you talk to your partners and counterparties outside Egypt, please tell them that Egypt has an incentive program that actually today has led to the industry growing, the airlines growing by more than 30% over time. And as a result, the wholesalers found the seats, but then the problem remained with the budgets to convince their CFOs to allocate the budget. We came up with, I've changed the entire plan to market. Some of you are marketing people in the room. We have reallocated the budgets in the fiscal year ending June 22. We have spent $16 million on communication to the end consumer. In the fiscal year that started on July 1st this year, we have increased the spend from 16 million to 55 million, and 80% of it is directed to fixing the supply side, making sure that our partners have enough support for their marketing. So today in the UK, actually it's British Airways that is advertising Sharm el-Sheikh. It's not the Ministry of or the Tourism Promotion Authority. It's actually British Airways on funding from the fund in. And the good thing is actually that all of this funding is actually also coming from the private sector. It is not coming out of taxpayers' money, and it's not coming out of the government budget. Because of actually the belief in the large companies who work in the private sector over the first few months, as I explained those things to them, they believed and they pitched in. So going into the future, we have to continue to ensure that we get enough seats. You know, a country like Croatia, for example, Croatia receives, I think, 4.5 tourists per citizen. Or I think 5, even 5. 80% of them arrive in Croatia through roads, by car. In Egypt, it's different. You know, you can either swim or you can fly. We will continue to incent airlines to land in Egypt. And we're going to continue to improve tourist experience. Now, the number one competitive advantage for the Egyptian product is, of course, its culture. Pyramids, the Luxor and Aswan. Some of you here are also museum leaders and avid cultural people. Maestro Nadeer, I had talked to you about this as well. And the 1 in 2 tourists who come to Egypt say that they are here either 100% because of the history, or history played a major role in their choice of Egypt as a beach and families destination. So they will want to visit Hurghada and Marsa Alam or Sharm, and they will also want to do pyramids or Cairo, West Cairo, or other destinations. And now the number one factor today that limits. So if during the first few months the number one limitation was aviation, today the number one limitation for our growth. I feel comfortable now that we have in place a plan that will continue to develop the air capacity for the coming 5 years. This is where still we still need to do a lot of work as a policymaker and as a regulator. We need to build 200,000 more rooms to be able to grow our tourism. By the way, have any of you tried to book a hotel room in Cairo over the past couple of, at least before October 7th? Everything is fully booked. Egypt's capacity to receive tourists is 15 million tourists. If we want to get to 30 million, and by the way, this is the reason why hotel rooms are so expensive this season, because occupancy is above 90% across most hotels. So we need to convince the private sector in the room and outside this room. It costs about 2.5 million Egyptian pound today, maybe up to 3 million on average, to مظبوط كده باسل for per room. لا, because you work in يعني أنا بتكلم على the entire spectrum. لا يعني طب خلاص okay, I will not debate with you. يعني لما تنزل كمان احنا we need 2 stars or 3 stars, we need 1 star كمان. الحقيقة we need everything. So when you actually put the 200,000 rooms split across the entire spectrum, I think 2.5 million to 3 million is probably the right number to work with. At least this is the number that I like to work with, between 2.5 and 3 million. And I'll explain to you a few things that we're going to announce over the coming couple of weeks to incent. And now I realize that the press also is in the room, so I will not give much details about what we're going to announce. لكن I can give some guidelines on how we're trying to incent the hotel investors to build more hotels, build more casinos, build more theme parks and experiences. But before I do that, let me just explain that we are also redesigning and enhancing the public spending on the programs. As I said, I have transferred the spend from spending on incenting demand to spend on fixing the supply side. And we have made sure that, for example, the المجلس الأعلى للآثار, the Supreme Council for Antiquities, it only spent about £1 billion Egyptian pounds on restoration and maintenance and so forth, £1 billion Egyptian pounds only during the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. This year, we're spending 3 billion Egyptian pounds, and it's 100% funded by the tickets that we're generating from the tourists who are arriving in Egypt. In 2022, it was funded, 2/3 of the funding came from the budget deficit from Minister Maid. Today, revenues are up 5 times to 6 billion Egyptian pounds in 2 years at the Supreme Council for Antiquities, thanks to the ticket sales and to the event management that is happening at the different sites. And we're also coming up, as you hear me saying, we're coming up with policies that are favorable to ensure that the private sector continues to lead the industry. We're making some digital transformation. Khaled is here as well. We have, in just a few months, there will not be a ticket office in any of the top 20 sites. People will buy their tickets either online or in less than a year ago, 80% of the tickets were sold cash on site. In just a couple of months, we're going to shut down all these ticket offices. We will. Companies should plan for that. The tourism industry should plan for that. I do not want to see your customers lining up in front of ticket offices. It's a bad experience for everyone. Buy the tickets in advance. We have made sure that there is enough alternatives for you to buy the tickets in advance before you reach the ticket office. And I've made sure that the chamber has issued enough decrees for the companies so they don't bring their customers to stand in front of the ticket office. It's just not a good experience. And we've issued a new law that actually puts unprecedented authorities in the hands of the civil society organizations which represent the private sector, Al-Ghuraf wal-Ittihad. I plead to the private sector to make sure that they put forward their best caliber in the next election. The boards of these chambers and federation have unprecedented rights to represent your industry. They have the ability to put forward policies that the ministry will have to listen to, and at the same time, they can self-regulate, and they should be able to, if they want, revoke a license of one of their members. Unprecedented powers. So please make sure in the private sector that you prepare for those elections well and choose the best people forward. So, as I said, we have to be a good regulator, you know, that if we want to be Spain, we have to be a regulator like the Spanish regulator. As I said, Spain doesn't have a Minister of Tourism. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we have hired Korn Ferry. Those of you who are not familiar with the name, Korn Ferry is the largest HR consultant in the world. They are part of Hayes Group. Korn Ferry has launched a global headhunting for a chief regulatory officer from one of the leading countries. I have secured the approval of the president and of the prime minister and of all the agencies actually that Egypt should have an expat from a top regulated country to be able to teach us how to take our regulatory frameworks to the next level. And I'm putting together forward inside the ministry the right organizational capacity for that expat to come to have the future of what's his name, كان اسمه ايه المدرب بتاع الاهلي المشهور قوي خوسيه. ايوه, the future of Jose, not the future of مدربين الزمالك اللي جم ورا بعض. You know, I understand that this is, you know, probably, yeah, I can see some people who are starting to leave the room already. Okay, so on a serious note, I think this is a very high-risk move, and it's the dreaming part in me that is pushing me to do this, to tell you the truth. And I've done it before. Yes, in a private sector company, I have to admit, I have hired, 15 expats in my previous role, and it has worked for me. So let's see. Private sector-led growth, of course. What are we doing to make sure that companies get enough incentives to build hotel rooms? Number one, we're going to make sure that the cost of financing is going to be subsidized by the Ministry of Finance. Over the coming couple of weeks, we're going to announce new incentives, new subsidies for interest rates, for cost of funding, for the private sector companies as they add to their hotel capacity. And at the same time, there are going to be tax breaks. So for certain cities and for certain places, people who are going to build hotel rooms are going to have the ability to exempt up to 50% of their capital expenditure from their tax bill until that waiver is completed. And we're going to be able to advertise this in a very strong, in a large conference that I'm planning for during the second quarter of 2025 2024. We're also working with the authorities in Egypt, which now owns the land. The Ministry of Housing, H.E Ahmed is now owned by Ministry of Housing, and of course the military, to make sure that the access to land is more accessible. But of course, to tell you the truth, there is enough land out there. I don't think that this is the number one impediment. We just need to convince enough people out there. The industry is still a very fragmented industry. The hotel industry in Egypt is still a very fragmented industry, by the way. The big players in Egypt are still small in international standards. The top 10 hotel owners in Egypt only own 26% of the hotel capacity. And this fragmentation is not good for the industry. A good industry probably should have a minimum of 50% of the capacity. The top 10 hotel owners should have around 50% of the capacity. For the industry to be able to be strong and be able to have the scale to spend on training, to weather through crisis and so forth. And these are the products that I think Egypt has by the way, this is the product of this work. I have to recognize the fine work of my predecessor, Dr. Khaled Nosseir, ربنا يوفقه إن شاء الله in his run for the UNESCO role. إن شاء الله كلنا نفخر بيه بإذن الله. Khaled has produced this magnificent global market research. And I've been in the private sector for 30 years. I have not seen anything with this quality. There are, many, many products, of course, in the global tourism industry. There is spa, there is wellness, there is desert, there is entertainment, there is nightlife, there are many, many, many other products. But these are the products that I know today we have as a result of this fine work that Khaled has done. These are the 4 products that we are focused on: cultural, adventure, resort, and family vacation. And then there is this interesting 5th type. This is where I think Egypt has the most competitive advantage. By the year 2028, by the year 2030, 200 million people will tour the world buying this product. 200 million people. We only need 30. So we have to choose where to spend, because the 50 million that I'm happy with, that I'm proud that we have increased spending too on promotion, is just a fraction of what other countries, regional players spend. So we have to be laser sharp. We have to be laser sharp on where do we spend our money. What products do we try to promote? And please, you in the private sector in the room, please know that this is where all the money is going. All the limited money, the limited resources that we have is going. Does that mean that you should not try to sell other products? Oh, absolutely, please do. But it only means that you're going to have to do it supported from your own resources. This is where the money is going from. The fund and all the resources within the Tourism Promotion Authority are going to be allocated. I'm sure some of you may be already involved in 1 or 2 other products, but this is where I think, in terms of policy, I am directing the resources and the funding. Between those 4 products, 55% of global tourism tour the world. And within this 55%, around 50% or more are, by 2030, are still going to fly and travel with a tour agent and a regulated agency. By 2028 to 2030, 1.5 billion people are going to tour the world. So this makes the addressable market, where Egypt has a significant competitive advantage in these 4 products, through the tour operators and the value chain that we are supporting. This makes the addressable market is a minimum of 300 to 400 million people a year, where we have a competitive advantage and where the value chain will continue to play, the institutional players within the value chain will continue to play a major role. So with this, I close my remarks on the existing strategies. Some of you may say, come on, you know, the future is for the independent traveler. You know, the future is not for the intermediaries who add value. The growth is for the internet, people who book on their own and stay with Airbnb. You know, are you sure you really know what you're doing? Well, according to, you know, the strategy that I've explained to you, the policies, actually I shouldn't use the word strategies. I should address what I'm doing as policies. The policies that we are implementing have the following basic assumptions. That the independent traveler, yes, is rising. The internet is going to disintermediate a lot of the tour operators, but not soon enough. The assumption is that for the coming 5 to 10 years, there is still going to be enough tourists who fly and travel with a regulated intermediary that will continue to play partnership with us in Egypt very strongly to be able to allow us to reach our goal. So for the future, yes, Egypt should focus on a product for the independent traveler, but not today. I don't think it's the best use of our resources today. And I say this quite frankly, and I've said it at the WTM and at the other shows. Here's what were some of the things that we're trying to do today: allocate some resources into building a future product for the independent traveler, but without allocating significant money resources into. So we're making sure that we enact a better easier e-visa platform where the independent travelers can obtain their visas before they arrive. And we're also upgrading the system of visa upon arrival at the airports, so they don't have to stop at the bank before they reach the immigration office. You know, today visa upon arrival is $25. Khaled is working with a team by April or May. By April or May. ما تزنقش نفسك كده. So before April, as Khaled has said, inshallah, we're going to, a tourist that arrives into Egypt wanting to get a visa upon arrival will be able to get this barcode on their way from the plane to the immigration officer. They're not going to have to stop at the bank and for the bank line. Because today there is a bank line to get the stamp, and then some of them يعني كمان arrive at the immigration officer stand for an hour, and then they discover that they have to go to the bank line. That's not acceptable at all, to tell you the truth. So we're working on these things, and these are small things that we're trying to do to make the product ready for the independent travel. But of course, if you're coming with a tour agent or with a regulated company, you don't make these mistakes. You avoid, most likely المندوب بتاع الشركة will have already obtained the stamp وجهز بيه واقف لك قدام فالحقيقة, this is what do I mean. If you're going to the pyramids, anybody went to the pyramids recently alone? Yeah, يعني Gareth, you're not, you're كنت متخفي يعني كنت. Oh yeah, I'm sure you didn't. Yeah. So I'm talking for the normal people like me. So if you've been to the pyramids alone, it's a 180-degree different experience. If you're going there as a Gareth, or as a Ahmed Issa, or as going with your tour operator. It's, you know, this is what do I mean by the product today is not exactly ready for the culture needs a lot of change, but then where do we allocate the resources? I've been asked many times to launch a local media campaign for to fix the culture of the people. To tell you the truth, I don't have the money for that. I'm better off spending the money on the value chain, and people come with tour operators. Then I just want to be frank with the private sector. So as you plan your own businesses, you know what the policies are, where the policies are, and where it's not. So, you know, you can plan your own businesses accordingly. We're also, one day Egypt is going to have proper taxis at the airports, but maybe not today. And we're going to measure and manage net promoter scores, and it's going to be part of the way we judge the performance of the regulated companies. So this is all what we're doing. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't take too long. Thank you.
I'm sure it was very interesting for the audience. It was sure for me very insightful. I have a few questions with me here, but I'll also open the questions to the floor for those who wish to have some questions directed to His Excellency, Ambassador Gareth.
صباح الفل يا جماعة. السفير البريطاني Gareth Bayley. I'm taking a risk because the media are here to tell you you're my favorite minister. Wallahi, Habibi. And all the other ones too. Quickly, so firstly, by my numbers, we should head for 1.2 million then British, because we now have about 600,000. Thank you so much on the airline seats. We're up now, we have EasyJet flying from Sphinx on the 31st to Luton, Wizz Air as well to Luton. British Airways, thank you, coming back to Sharm, so we're delighted about that. My question really is narrow about Britain, but maybe it has a general question, which is what happens at the supply side from the UK side? Like, what do you want UK retailers to do which is qualitatively different? And what, I mean, embassies, maybe, but embassies try to help to facilitate this. We have an export desire. This is an Egyptian export. A tourist is an Egyptian export, but we want to help. We want British tourism companies to succeed in this market. So what do we need to do? And the other question is this business, you know I'm obsessed with it, the adventure sector. And it seems to me, I was interested by the percentage. I guess that percentage is high because of diving or something like that, because the desert sector is underdeveloped. And you have all of this extraordinary terrain and beautiful desert that actually is better than the Gulf. بصراحة بكتير. And I know people want to come, and I know they want to spend a lot of money in that sector, and I know you've got a lot of things on your mind, but if you could say something about that, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gareth. It's a great question. I think if you look back, the height of the industry, the source market, UK as a source market, was I think back in 2015, Egypt received 1.5 million Brits. And if you look at what they did, they mostly focused on the product where, the regional product. They stayed at Taba, they visited Petra and Cairo. Taba is 4-hour trip. I'm sure that over the coming few years, we can bring back this product. Taba still has the highest percentage of closed rooms across all the regions of Egypt today. We have 1 in 10 rooms that are closed or under renovation or bankrupt or whatever. And Taba has 3 in 8. So I think the Taba hotel investors needs to consolidate. They need to consolidate. They need to be able to talk to the industry in the UK. I'm sure that soon enough that product will return. Taba Airport has the lowest load factor in Egypt. A flight can land at Taba Airport at 55% capacity and still be qualify for incentives. So I think that product is for the, not immediately, but for the long-term future, is the product that is going to allow the UK market to return to its previous numbers. As I said, depending on a regional product, people to stay in Taba, to Dahab, take the ferry to Aqaba, and then 1.5 hour drive to Petra, visit Petra and come back, stay the night. Have good casinos around the area of Taba. They have, and then a 4-hour road trip to Cairo they can visit. It's actually closer than Hurghada, and certainly closer than Sharm el-Sheikh, to the pyramids of Giza and to the Grand Egyptian Museum. So I think the UK companies should continue to understand more our incentives program. There are still a couple of the leading companies in the UK that do not allocate resources to the Egyptian product. And I hope I can be able to visit them or meet with them during the WTM. I know that we have a compelling argument to make in front of them. Companies that do work in Egypt actually make a lot of money on the Egyptian product today. The structure is correct and the growth is correct. And this is the reason why we focused on the corporate sector to help us build the industry, instead of trying to go directly to the independent traveler. On adventures, as you've correctly said, Egypt as well has a significant advantage with the adventurers. Today, the adventurers that we think we have a competitive advantage with are the adventurers who are seeking scuba diving trips, safari trips across the Red Sea. This is where the product is developed, the infrastructure is available. The desert and the desert products still need they need to travel a lot of distance for them, as a regulator, to feel comfortable for the safety, security, and hygiene of the tourists. This is our reasons for being as a ministry. We're here to protect the safety, security, and hygiene of the tourists. And these are the products that I think we know that we can measure and control the safety, security, and hygiene of tourists. Scuba, vacations, families, and culture. There is huge potential, huge future for the desert products in Egypt, but it's something that we're going to have to work on for the coming couple of years to be able to build capacity within the regulator to understand how can we regulate this product and be able to license the companies to do well. Mr. Ambassador.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for a very excellent presentation and the vision you have. There is 3 pillars you have, or triangle, as you kindly said. I think the most important thing is the experience of the tours coming to Egypt, because I feel that this is maybe need more attention. I feel that the tourists, when they come, we have to, if you can employ, as an example, a multinational firm like the HR to evaluate the experience of the tourists when they come to Egypt. They face a lot of, unfortunately, negative things. I don't want to sound negative, but I travel every other week. On my way into Cairo airport, on the same flight I'm coming with from Paris or from Rome or wherever, half of the plane is tourists. And they saw them when they go into the transfer from the international to the domestic flight. It's lousy. Offer. I'm inviting you as an advice and friend to make an unpublished visit to Cairo Airport jointly with the Minister of Aviation. The situation is lousy. Lousy on the check-in, queues, unbelievable from the street.
وضحت يا ماجد بقى خلاص. وضحت والله وضحت. It's clear.
Moreover,
I can add to that, by the way. You know what? I can seriously add to that. That's the thing.
Thank you.
That's the thing. The thing is, the 90% of tourists that come into Cairo, Magid, see a different airport than the one that you're talking about. They see the airport that is smart companies like the one in the rooms, actually, and they provide them with the experience that is different from the independent traveler. And as you know, at the airport is part of the Ministry of Civil Aviation. And we talk on regular basis with my colleague, the Minister of Civil Aviation, who's doing a fantastic job at actually improving the customer experience. It's being advanced as we speak. And as I said, at the pyramids, probably we're going to talk the next thing about the pyramids. I've actually spoken with the company that manages the pyramids today. Over the coming couple of months as well, we're going to open the new gate from the Fayoum Road. We're going to shut down this old access to the pyramid, and people are going to see a visitor center, actually, with clean bathrooms. With clean bathrooms and a TV or actually a theater room for where people are going to see, and then they're going to hop on and hop off an environmentally friendly bus, who are actually going to stop in 7 stops, and in each stop they're going to be either La Durée or Starbucks or a good experience for. These are things that we're working on, where the private sector is adding a lot of value, and we, the Singaporean ambassador is here, and maybe he can tell you a little bit offline about what my colleague, the Minister of Aviation, is doing with Singapore Airport, in collaboration with them to try to bring the quality of service across our airports to the next level. So everyone is working, to tell you the truth. حتى even my colleagues at Dakhliya, النهارده, when you look at the improvement in the way people deal with tourists in tourist sites, these are things that I appreciate what you've said, and they are all true. But then I'll tell you 2 things. Over the short term, we have been working on those things over the past few months through the people in the value chain who manage the tours, who have to do the hard work of concealing those things that you've mentioned from the eyes of the tourists, and I admit they are all true. And at the same time, for the future, we're doing these small things at the big places like the airports and the pyramids. So thank you for the comment. I take it. Next, please.
Mr. Ambassador.
Singapore Ambassador Dominic Goh, nice to meet you, Minister, again. Well, just to elaborate, so Singapore is not a huge market for you in terms of tourists, but we can help you with the infrastructure and the services. So what we are doing is that Changi Airport, the best airport in the world, is now having a consultancy contract with Cairo Airport, and they will make some recommendations to improve the passenger flow. And if that works out, then maybe the relationship can go deeper than that, than just a consultancy contract. That's one thing. And I know that they are working now on a detailed list of recommendations to the minister on where they can show the best impact in terms of passenger flow in Cairo Airport. So once that is out, they implement, and hopefully we will see improvement in the passenger flow. That's one. Secondly, as we spoke yesterday, Minister, Singapore company is helping to promote tourism in Egypt by touring a very good exhibition called Ramses the Great, And that exhibition just closed in Paris. It is now moving to Sydney, Australia. And next year, it will be in Germany. So a Singapore company is helping with that. In fact, right after this, I have to rush to the NEMEC for the press conference for the opening of Sydney. Yeah. So, and the third thing, Minister, a question for you after my remarks is, we, as I mentioned yesterday also, that we have two companies that are interested, two big companies interested in the hotels, hotel development. So what incentives, what specific incentives will the Egyptian government offer to hotel investors in Egypt? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Your Excellency, there are, the number one, of course, incentive for any investor is what kind of returns do they make in the country. And I actually argue that over the past year, hotel investors in Egypt have been making substantial returns on their investments in the country. I think the risk-adjusted returns on investments in hotels in Egypt across the world is one of the best. I will argue that. But then the government, as I said, we're enacting policies that are freeing the industry, that are putting unprecedented powers in the hands of the private sector through the civil society organizations which represent the private sector to act in three ways. Number one, they are going to be able to advocate policies. They are going to be able to pool the resources of this fragmented industry into those civil society organizations to be able to provide for the lack of scale across most of the industry in terms of spend on training and in terms of ability to raise funding and so forth. And the third, equally important, is that it's going to have the ability to self-regulate. So a company that is going to lose its membership in the chamber will not be able to get its license renewed by the ministry. But equally, we're also, over the coming few weeks, I hope you're going to be able to follow what the government is going to announce in terms of incentives, tax rebates, and interest rate rebates and interest rate subsidies for hotel investors who are going to add to their hotel capacity over the coming 2 years. Because the number one, I kind of feel comfortable that we're going to be able to achieve 18 million in 2024, inshallah. But then it's 2025 because 25,000 rooms are coming, are going to be opened over the coming 6 months. 25,000 rooms. You've seen that it took 22 years to add 100,000 rooms. Over the coming 6 months, we're going to see 20 to 25,000 rooms opened across Egypt, added to the capacity, because of the right things that are happening on the industry. That will allow us to rise to 18 million tourists. But 2025 remains the biggest challenge. It remains where the most undersupply is. I've told some, I'm not going to show, I'm not going to point my fingers at anybody here. I've told one of the investors here, I'm not going to answer their phone unless they add 10,000 rooms over the coming 3 years. Okay, خليهم 15. Of course, I'm joking. Of course, Bassel and I are really good friends, and everyone in the industry, actually, this is a great industry that is generating above average returns, especially over the coming period. And I encourage people to follow the announcements from the government over the coming few weeks, benefit from the incentives and the rebates and the subsidies that we're going to announce, and at the same time benefit from the exceptional IRR that they are making in investing in hotels in Egypt. I hope this is the... Okay, thank you.
I think we owe the question.
Oh, absolutely, طبعا.
I just have a remark that I think I should add. I have hotels in Egypt, Hurghada and Cairo, and I have a hotel in London. Totally different environment. Investment in London is very stable. But I would like to endorse Your Excellency's statement. The return on investment in a hotel in Egypt, despite of the roller coaster, in answer to Your Excellency's question, ultimately is much shorter than the payback in London for obvious reasons. Also, the regulatory environment in London, there is a very rigorous system. We are submitting, replanning for the hotel we got approval for the tallest tower in West London. It took us 3 years. It's a very rigorous but very solid process that we know. In Egypt, it takes the same time, but it's not very well regulated. So ultimately, there is a balance to answer to the question. And yes, in all honesty, as you explained it in a very technical term, the risk-adjusted rate of return is ultimately the same, which answers the point for any investor who would like to consider investment in Egypt. Thank you.
We'll take the last question. The last question.
Good morning. Although I said good morning earlier. I just want to, I saw the plan or the reasons why tourists travel to Egypt. This was made by Dr. Khaled, the previous minister. But he neglected completely the high-end tourists. And this is conference and incentives. This, they come off-season, easy to attract off-season, and they are the highest spender. One of these tourists spend in average 5 times the regular tourism, not the one in Uganda, but the one who goes across the Nile. So I would like to see more efforts there. Secondly, it's important, Australia, this year, because for 3 years they were confined because of COVID. They didn't travel. I just came from Australia, and we have the exhibition of Ramses II, and we should do something out of it. Thank you.
Well, great points. I think Egypt has tremendous advantage with MICE tourism, meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. مش كده? Is that the term? I'm still trying to learn. There's no doubt that Egypt has significant competitive advantage with that. But where's the private sector? I think the companies that should be able to organize the best MICE event are companies from the private sector. If you look at how it has risen, sometimes people ask me why, for example, isn't a certain town or a certain city on the tourist map? And I tell them, look at what Gharb Suhail, for example, have done for itself. What Siwa has done for itself. These are, the point is we work with very limited budgets in terms of spend. And I have actually started from the top and then have stopped at the product that has consumed the entire budget in what I hope is a good scientific way. And then, to tell you the truth, MICE was just 2 products away from the products where I stopped. So I agree with you, MICE has a significant advantage, but we don't have the budget for it. And I think private sector should be able to build a product for MICE in Egypt strongly. We can provide access, we can provide maybe some facilitation at the borders, but then in terms of spend from the Hayat Tancheet, we just don't have the funding for it. We don't have the funding even for these 4 products. But these are the products where, as I said, between these 4 products, we think that there are 200 to 300, minimum 300 million people that are going to travel in 2028. Now, I encourage the private sector to really build we have the facilities, we have the infrastructure, and we have the flights, we have the destinations, we have the additional products. And I look forward for the chamber and the federation to embrace this product and be able to allocate resources to it. Australia, you're absolutely correct. The Ramses is just the start. We have a new ambassador there in December, inshallah. I intend to visit Australia. So far we only get, I think, about 3,000 tourists a week from Australia. It's just a very small market share, and I hope we can get, yes, we will allocate budget to Australia. That I will allocate budget to starting March or April, inshallah.
Can we take one more?
Sure.
The very last one.
Number one, thank you for the presentation. It was very optimistic one. Actually, I was feeling down because of what's happening around, but after hearing this technical and scientific presentation, there is a great hope that now I really believe in. I have 3 points, very quick, because I'm the last one. Number one, I have a comment about the issue of the transportation, the taxes that you will take care of. Can we add to this one the issue of the Uber? Because Uber, though it's maybe it's something not that big, but a lot of tourists, from my friends at least, they said that when we use Uber from 4 years, it was much better than now. There is a great deterioration in Uber quality. Number two is, can we make like an event? I know that we have capacity problem, which was addressed properly. Can we make an event on a basis of private sector can build like something prefabricated hotels? For this event only, it can take like whatever, 500,000 million tourists for the event, and then we'll take it off. So this could be an idea. The third one, can we have a digital pass like the Swiss pass in Switzerland, where the customer, the tourist is a customer, to book the ticket, the visa, the hotel, the transportation, the museums, all in a digital one. Thank you.
Well, I think these are all great ideas, and I think they can all make great business sense. As a regulator of 8,000 companies, again, let's exactly, we have to stay focused on each of our roles. The role of the Ministry of, guys, the Ministry is part of the government. For what the government can do is to regulate 8,000 companies that constitute the industry of tourism across 5 sub-industries: hotels, restaurants, transportation. This is what the government can do. And on the side, we do the role of managing a budget of $50 million for spend on promotion and advertising, and maybe about $90 million of aviation incentives. I'll stay focused on these roles to be able to play my role. And I will do it correctly, and I will do it rightly. And in doing those roles, my team and I are going to be able to enable the private sector to achieve the 30 million. In 2028. Inshallah.
Inshallah, it will happen. Thank you, Your Excellency. Very, very interesting discussion and very interesting presentation. I'm sure everybody enjoyed it. And, we wish you luck, and we'll definitely, the private sector will definitely play a role.
Oh, absolutely. There were some banks in the room. I'm happy now that طارق كان هنا ومشي وكان في زملاء. Actually انت قليل برضه لسه دلوقتي بنك قناة السويس صحيح. So the point, actually, banks until last year, and of course Bank Masr is here as well. So I think you're still with Bank Masr? No? Okay. So I think if you read into what the banks are doing today, less than 7 or 8% of their portfolios are allocated into hotels. They just don't, and I agree with them. I agree with banks. It is difficult to prove the credit worthiness of a hotel company today.
And also, it's with the high interest rates, it's making it very difficult
Absolutely.
for the investors to commit, knowing the vulnerability of the market. As Basil said, it's ups and downs. So
Absolutely.
How can you really target and take the risk with such an exposure, with such interest
The
rates?
only way hotel investors can move forward is to actually consolidate and be able to raise the right capital from countries that understand. You know, I really wish to be able to convince, for example, Chinese or Japanese or Spaniards or Germans or to be able to come and build their network. You know, we're talking about the Japanese and South Korean market. I think there is huge opportunity for foreign direct investments to come into this industry and build a minimum of 20,000 rooms for each company over the coming 5 to 10 years. This is a magnificent opportunity for everyone, and I'll keep on saying it, and I'll keep on touring the world to be able to convince and sell the idea. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.